Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Wednesday, July 29th, 2020. Here are our top stories: cybersecurity threats to our national security and financial infrastructure, and what consumers can do. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Parham Eftekhari. He's the Executive Director of the Cybersecurity Collaborative. Parham, welcome to the program. Great to have you this morning.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and talk about all these issues.
Yeah, this is really important. Before we dive into, I want to talk national security. I want to get at the real macro level before we drive down into what consumers can take away from this and how they can protect themselves. Let's talk about the collaborative and what that essentially is. I think that's really important for people to hear. It's all these people coming together and trying to improve the framework, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, we believe that one of the most important things that one can do to defend our nation and our economy against all these threats out there is focus on the frontline leaders who are protecting us digitally. And so our mission is to help cybersecurity leaders be more successful. And that's really what we're all about. So organizations join as members and their cybersecurity leaders become involved in the various services that we make available. And we essentially give them the tools to become better cybersecurity leaders and to collaborate with their peers, with other leaders from across the nation and with government to understand what the best ways are to defend themselves against nation state adversaries or cyber criminals who are trying to do all the bad, nefarious things that we'll be talking about here today.
Yeah, and I know that, to me, you can't defend yourself alone. You've got to do this, whether it's by industry, by sector, government, private. You've got to have that sense of collaboration, hence the name Cybersecurity Collaborative.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think we've learned over and over. Actually, one of our executive committee members from the CISO from Yum Brands says it best, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he says the adversaries are working together, and so we need to do so as well. And we see this time and time again. And I don't want to get very technical, but the bad guys are absolutely out there on deep web forums. They're sharing tools and techniques that they're using against us. And we at the federal level, the state level, and certainly at the private level need to coordinate and collaborate and share strategies and tools and techniques among ourselves to become better prepared to defend against these organizations. And I think we're doing a better job, and we're trying to do our part to help the nation.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. And I think it's best to start at the macro level in this segment because many people who are watching this program probably are aware of data breaches. I can roll off a lot of them. I'm sure you can do even more than I. The Equifax data breach, others that have put at risk some level of individual data. But it's a lot more than that because actually our country, the United States of America, is actually under threat. It's not just the financial systems, but it's the apparatus of government and our actual republic that are at risk here.
Absolutely. I think one of the most important things that people sometimes tend to forget is that today, one of the primary strategies and approaches that our nation state adversaries are using to degrade our standing on the global stage is by exploiting the vulnerabilities that exist in all the technologies that are running what you said, whether it's our government infrastructures, government services at the state, local and federal levels, all of the services that we receive from our critical infrastructures, be it finance, healthcare, manufacturing, education, technology, communications, you name it. Unfortunately, what's happened is that all this technology has been rolled out and adopted very rapidly to the benefit of society, but it's been done so without paying due diligence to the security of this technology. And so we have all this technology out there, extremely insecure at a global level, not just here in the United States. And adversaries, particularly at a nation level, have understood that it's much cheaper to advance their priorities in terms of catapulting themselves ahead of the United States as a global superpower by exploiting digital vulnerabilities than it is doing so through traditional military means. And that's what we're seeing across the stage, and we're seeing so in those examples you've identified, as well as many others that we see being exploited, particularly by Russia and China, but also Iran, North Korea, and some of these other nation state actors.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take on the U.S. from a military perspective, but you certainly can take us on stealing secrets, stealing information, stealing money, laundering money. All those types of things are available to our adversaries. Let's talk about, I want people not to have the impression that these are just large companies, large organizations that are at risk, because I would think that large companies have a lot more resources in terms of staffing, in terms of technology, and trying to prevent these hacks. Doesn't mean that they will prevent the hacks, but they can do more to prevent. But are we more vulnerable, for instance, with smaller organizations who maybe don't have those resources, and that's a way to kind of, for lack of a better term, backdoor your way in to a greater, larger infrastructure?
Yeah, you're spot on. You hear in the news oftentimes we speak about securing our nation's supply chain. And the majority of our nation's supply chain is small and medium businesses. And you're absolutely correct. Small and medium businesses do not have the resources to have dedicated cybersecurity practitioners or personnel focused on securing the computers, the servers, all the cell phones and mobile devices, and essentially the IT infrastructure that exists. And so what happens is that they become ripe targets. And because of all the connections between what's called that supply chain, right, from the big organizations down to the small, what happens is that adversaries can do two things. One is that they can steal data and steal information from those small organizations, which in and of itself is valuable because they themselves hold valuable data, but they also probably hold information from those large organizations. Secondarily, because of the way a lot of these organizations are connected through the cloud and other sorts of modern technologies, they can actually piggyback an attack from a small organization into a large organization. One incident that most people are familiar with, who have heard about, is the Target breach. Everyone knows that Target got hacked. What a lot of people don't know is that Target got hacked through their HVAC system. And so it was actually the HVAC carrier that was hacked, and they got through that system into the corporate network of Target and were able to do all the bad things that they did. And so we call it, the third-party vendors. It's this ecosystem of technology that these large corporations are reliant on that needs to be secured to ensure that those big kind of juicy targets that everyone wants to get after are ultimately secured for our national security.
And it's also not just brick and mortar. I mean, it's like the Targets of the world. Social media. We just had the Twitter. A Twitter hack, I think it was last week, around cryptocurrency, and notable figures. I mean, the former president of the United States, as an example, his account was hacked. So there's the ability to provide disinformation, and I don't want to go down that slippery slope, but provide disinformation and stir people up. I mean, these are all vulnerabilities, and it affects not just your financial records. It infects the supply chain, but also how we consume and understand information.
Absolutely. Trust is critical to a democracy. And when organizations, nations, or individuals are able to, in a meaningful way, create distrust in our democratic institutions by artificially increasing what seems to be the dialogue around certain topics, or by artificially inflating what are what seems to be the numbers on either side of an argument through the use of algorithms and bots on social media to inflate what seems to be the dialogue happening, and then getting other people involved. And then what happens is that the media picks up on it. They're not doing their homework to see what's real and what's not. And then us as consumers are not doing our homework to know what's a real post, what's not a real post. This all becomes a problem. And we're seeing it playing out today. We've seen it happen over the last several years. And it's a real issue that the technology providers who are providing these platforms, the Twitters and Facebooks of the world, they absolutely have to solve it. And you're spot on. It's a very sensitive issue because it's been politicized, but that's exactly what they want. Russia and China and our adversaries want this to be politicized, and we just need to have a objective conversation around it from a technology perspective.
Yeah, I think we're most vulnerable. We're only vulnerable if we fight each other, not look externally and fight our adversaries. Farham, I want to go to a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about things that consumers can do and people that are watching this program can do to protect themselves, protect their organizations, and also protect their country. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
The windows on our homes, they protect us and the ones we love, but they do much more. At Renewal by Andersen, making your home more comfortable is at the center of every window we make. It's why we custom build our windows in America and install them in as little as 1 day. It's why we build our frames with exclusive Fibrex composite material that's 2 times stronger than vinyl. It's why our glass helps keep your home warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and quieter all year long. It's why we stand behind every window with a 20-year limited warranty. Why not help lower your energy costs while giving your home and family the best? Call 1-800-835-6525 to schedule a free in-home consultation. Buy one, get one at 40% off with this special offer. Plus, get special financing with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 1 full year. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window. Call 1-800-835-6525 now.
Welcome back. We're talking to Parham Eftekhari. He's the Executive Director of the Cybersecurity Collaborative. Parham, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Absolutely. It's been a great dialogue.
It's been a great dialogue. And I don't know why I have so much problem saying collaborative, but I'll probably get that right by the end of the show. So we kind of set the table for the audience, and we all have I believe we all have a role to play in protecting not only ourselves, our families, our companies, our organizations, but also our country. What are some of the things that you, off the top of your head and at the collaborative, that you were thinking about in terms of helping consumers and Americans protect each other?
Yeah, well, I think, one of the things that people sometimes don't realize if they're not in this industry is that there is a direct correlation between some of the digital crime and cybercrime that they hear about in the news and what happens in their local community. And I'm going to give this out, explain this at a very high level. But a lot of times what happens, particularly when the crime happens not from nation states, but by cyber criminals who are have a desired goal of some sort of financial gain. There is a digital theft of some sort of data. That data is sold somewhere on these deep web marketplaces for Bitcoins, which are untraceable, right? Not like traditional currency. And those Bitcoins are then used to fund some sort of illicit activity. It could be to buy and sell drugs, to buy and sell illegal arms, for sex trafficking, for child pornography. And those things eventually end up in your local communities. And so, I always bring this up because sometimes when we hear in the news about this bank got hacked, this hospital got hacked, this institution or billion-dollar company had an incident, it didn't affect you if you didn't get an email about your information being breached. You think that it may not ultimately affect you, but you may be surprised how these things can trickle down and actually impact your community or someone else's community in our society, in our nation, in an allied nation. And so that's why these things really do matter, and why cybersecurity is a national security priority and is really impacting all of us at a national scale. And I really like to make that point, because I don't think a lot of people make that connection as easily as we think.
Yeah, we get bombarded when it comes to a lot of information, as we were talking about in the first segment, comes our way, and it's up to each individual to kind of break it down and figure out how it applies to them. But anytime I hear about a hack, the first thing that I think about is, okay, someone's social security number winds up on the dark web, for lack of a better term, and then goes through the process that you described. Is it just a case of, in order to defend against this, is it just a case of the American public being more vigilant? So we're teaching people how to be vigilant at an early age in K through 12 school, in college, university, and in the workforce. I mean, is that what it just comes down to? Is just being aware?
I think there's a number of things. I think cybersecurity awareness continues to be one of the best lines of defense, and education does need to start from a very young age. We encourage K through 12 education around cybersecurity, both because we need cyber warriors in this fight, and there's a big shortage of skilled cybersecurity practitioners, and it's a very great paying job. So I'll give a plug for the industry right here, but also because it allows us to, it enables us to ensure that when you are in the workforce, when you are using your device, you think twice before clicking that link. You look at the URL and ensure that the email, did it come from Facebook, or is it from, is the book spelled with 2 zeros, meaning that it's a phishing attempt? It'll make you think twice about consuming that piece of social media, which could be propaganda or fake news from an adversary trying to, create some distrust in an upcoming election or some other nefarious activities. So awareness training is absolutely spot on. There's other things people can do as well. I think one of the biggest things, which we've talked about earlier, is the fact that there's all this insecure technology out there. The reason that's the case is not because we don't know how to build better technology. We know how to do it. The reason it doesn't happen is because it's expensive to do, and it slows down the time to market for companies to release new products, which ultimately costs them money. And the reason they haven't changed this is because consumers continue to buy insecure products. No one is, for the most part, stopping their purchasing behaviors or changing their purchasing behaviors for security. We're just now starting to see that. So one of the biggest things consumers can do is to actually start to speak up, both with their voices and with their wallets, and demand that technology manufacturers, whether it's devices, software, applications, business, government, consumer, whatever it is that you're buying, ask questions about security and let people know that you chose to buy their competitor's product because you felt it was more secure. I will guarantee you that as soon as technology manufacturers start to hear that you're buying not just based on price and functionality and design, but also on security, security will skyrocket in terms of the priority list, in terms of product developments, and also security will be more embedded into the design process, which will reduce the amount of vulnerabilities that can be exploited by nation state and state actors. And so consumer involvement, just from a purchasing perspective, is critical. I think also, and there's so many things going on in society right now to engage your lawmakers on, but security is another one of them. If you have an opportunity to engage with your lawmakers, ask them about the plethora of cybersecurity bills being bounced around on Capitol Hill at the federal level or at a state and local level, and let them know that you support them in a nonpartisan way and that cybersecurity is important to you. And so these are some of the things that organizations can do. And a third one I forgot about is apps. Don't, just because there's an app that'll download, a photo of your face and make you look like you're 80, even though you're only 20, it may be fun and cute, but if you read the terms and conditions, and it says that app also gives them access to your contact list, your text messages, your phone calls, your camera, your microphone, and that app was produced by some company you never heard of in China, and you know that China has rules where they have a member of the Communist Party on the manufacturing floor or embedded in every company, you can believe that that's being used as part of some sort of a state-sponsored national campaign to exfiltrate data on all of our citizens. So don't download that app, regardless of how fun it'll be to have that photo of you looking 80. Those are things that we can do as Americans to protect ourselves and start to shift this tide of insecurity that we have today.
And you mentioned lawmakers at all levels of government. I would imagine that you and your members are testifying before the House of Representatives, the Senate, and some of these local governments in order to on these topics to make them aware and to elevate these issues. I mean, this is not just a security or financial issue. This is a national security issue. So I have to think it is at the highest levels of government, the executive branch, the legislative branch, to weigh in on and come up with protocols to protect us. But we can't just rely on that. We've got to do our own part.
That's spot on. There's so much, unfortunately, there's a lot of dysfunction and discord in government, but I will say, and I'm biased, I've worked in the public sector for, not as an employee, but in that ecosystem for almost a dozen years. And I will say there's tremendous support and tremendous civil servants who care passionately in a nonpartisan way about defending our nation from a digital perspective. And there's a lot of great work happening, even on Capitol Hill. I'm the board chair of a cybersecurity think tank in DC, and one of our fellows, Dave Summit from the Moffitt Cancer Center, was just appointed as one of the, I don't want to use the wrong word, but there's a task force, I believe is the term, that was put together by Congress to deal with the robocalling epidemic that is affecting citizens, right? We all get those spam calls dozens of times a day, but it's also impacting hospitals and other types of organizations who are getting infiltrated with calls that are trying to exfiltrate PII from the healthcare perspective and others. And so, that's been set up by Congress, and they're working to solve it, and they're passing laws. And so there's a lot of examples of what Congress is doing that will affect change. But again, you're absolutely right. I believe that the biggest change that we've always seen in this country historically, regardless of what it is when people speak up and people let our elected officials know and corporations know that things matter to them, and we'll start to see change. I think we're seeing that right now in the country, and I think security can be categorized in that same bucket.
Yeah, we almost need to have, if you remember, you're probably maybe not old enough to remember, but the Uncle Sam posters where they say you can do your part. We kind of need something similar like that, just to remind people each and every day that they have a part to play in this effort as well. Parham Iftikhari, always a pleasure talking with you. Best of luck, and we will talk to you very soon again on the network.
Look forward to it. I really enjoyed this, and it's a topic I'm passionate about. So anytime you want to talk, I'm always available.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest or someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our newsletter, The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-757-1451. That's 1-800-757-1451.